Today I'm taking my two sisters to a huge Sephora.
It's like a 3-story
event. It's so big. We're totally going.
You guys, they were freaking out. They were so excited, but I told them we were only going in and they were only gonna get one thing each. Well, we'll see how that turned out. You guys, my sisters were in there for like 3 hours. I finished shopping. I literally went to the car and they still weren't done. I was like, I'm never gonna bring him here again. Now, remember when I said they were gonna get one thing each? Well, they thought that meant one bag each. So now they're going to give you a little haul of everything that they got.
Okay, you were only supposed to get what was in this bag, but instead, all right, hurry and tell me what you got.
So I have these 2 mists. I have 4 glow things. I got Say Sunglow this time.
Sol de Janeiro. Look at all this.
Okay, I got Milk Makeup Primer.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you're done.
Yeah, you went a little over
Paisley
budget.
also I literally look at all this stuff. Oh my gosh. These girls never stick to a budget. If you guys want to see the real challenge of the video, go to my YouTube channel right now. Link in bio. Do you guys think I should?
When I was a preteen, my favorite stores were Justice and Claire's. I had a collection of polymer clay food earrings, wore fuzzy white leg warmers, and neon fishnets. In short, I was a sparkly mess. At that time, many people my age were already wearing clothes based on name brands, Aeropostale and Abercrombie & Fitch, things bought because the name was plastered on it and the name meant that you had money to buy overpriced t-shirts and jeans. At the time, my mother wouldn't allow me to wear makeup until 8th grade. I was allowed my collection of those clear roll-on lip glosses, but not the eyeliner or lipstick that my classmates wore. My mother's explanation was that when you started wearing makeup, you couldn't stop. People would grow used to the new face, the drawn-on one, and if you ever tried to stop, they would find you sickly or strange due to the absence. Later, in 7th grade, one of my teachers told my parents that I was putting on lip gloss provocatively for the boys, and my collection was confiscated. It was then that I learned of a second reason why makeup wasn't allowed just yet. It was a signifier of something more than just personal expression. When I was a teen, preteen was still a consumer base. There were stores catering to them. There were girls wearing awful and bright-colored things, embarrassing things, who walked around malls in cosplay and existed in that space between childhood and adolescence, between the carelessness of not yet knowing what it means to be female and the oppressive sexualization of being a teenager. Today, you'll see children asking for Sephora gift cards, listing expensive makeup, crop tops, those lights for looking nice during streaming on their Christmas lists, alongside more age-appropriate gifts. And it leaves me wondering, why?
Headline doesn't stop you in your tracks, I don't know what will. And this headline actually came from a recent study that was done at the University of Edinburgh, but here's the thing. This isn't even the worst of the 2 headlines that I'm going to show you. So for this particular study, Edinburgh University's Childlight Institute surveyed 4,500 men from the UK, Australia, and the US, and basically asked them the question, would you SA a child if secrecy was 100% assured? And what they discovered, and these were just the men who admitted it, was that more than 1 in 20 men would have inappropriate relationships with a child between the ages of 10 and 14 if they knew that secrecy was 100% assured. The study also found that about 1 in 7 men, which equates to about 15% of those surveyed, said that they would consider inappropriate contact with a child if they knew that secrecy was assured. 1 in 7. Now, statistically speaking, that equates to millions of men across those 3 countries. But remember, I said that this was not the worst headline. In my opinion, this one is worse. And this one was also conducted by Edinburgh University's Childlight program. And what they did for this study is they surveyed 1,500 British men and basically asked if they had carried out any offenses against children. The answering was a staggering 1 in 10 for both online and offline. Now, outside of the 10.1% of men who admitted that they had engaged in child offending either on or offline, they also surveyed that 1 in 20 men, which is 4.8% of the men surveyed, had also admitted to engaging in some type of actual act with a child while they were over the age of 18. This same survey, again studying only British men, found out that 5% of British men had admitted that they actually had inappropriate feelings toward children and had actually acted upon them. Now here's the thing, we all know that this is a problem because we see the headlines all the time, but I had no idea it was this widespread of a problem. Just don't let men watch your kids. And by the way, the vast majority of the time, this apparently happens, according to the surveys, by men that are close to you. So typically family members or close family friends. Do everything you can to keep your kids, both boys and girls, safe.
Over the past few decades, the sexualization of and attraction to children has become more widespread and less criticized, and alongside a burgeoning hatred of older women and fear of aging, has led to the creation of a generation of girls who have decided that the only solution to inevitable sexualization and the valuation of youth is to accept it. The most well-known fictional representation of pedophilia is Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita.
Have you ever heard of the book or read the book Lolita?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Talk about a book that so many people get wrong. The whole point of the book is this narrator is manipulating the reader into thinking that this relationship is normal or fine, and that he's not being this young girl. And it's this long book, and he uses all this great prose to manipulate the reader into thinking like, oh yeah, it sounds like he's totally with it, and he's kind of justifying everything that he does. But the whole point of the book is to see how manipulated we can be by literature.
Right.
And I could see people read that book and get totally the wrong take on it, where it's like, yeah, this can be justified. Totally. This is right. So I can imagine like a reading Lolita and thinking like, yeah, this is exactly why we can justify.
They missed the whole point of it because they're identifying with the things that they want to hear. I think a more relatable perspective, it's like just a human nature to be affected by propaganda. I mean, if you look at the media, just like the news, the government, and all the things that are put out by the major news outlets and things like that, it's very easy to get sucked into their narrative.
Because it was written through the unreliable perspective of a sexual predator, it has often been misconstrued as an endorsement of pedophilia. Nabokov himself was a victim of abuse, as he mentions in his autobiography that when he was 8 or 9, his uncle would invariably take me upon his knee after lunch, and while 2 young footmen were clearing the table in the empty dining room, fondle me with crooning sounds and fancy endearments, and feared that his work would be misconstrued as it was. He wrote in apostrophes, "Lolita isn't a perverse young girl. She's a poor child who has been debauched and whose senses never stir under the caresses of the foul Humbert, whom she asked once, how long did he think we were going to live in stuffy cabins doing filthy things together? But to reply to your question, no, its success doesn't annoy me. I am not like Conan Doyle, who out of snobbery or simple stupidity preferred to be known as the author of the Great Boer War, which he thought superior to his Sherlock Holmes. It is equally interesting to dwell, as journalists say, on the problem of the inept degradation that the character of the nymphet Lolita, whom I invented in 1955, has undergone in the mind of the broad public. Not only has the perversity of his poor child been grotesquely exaggerated, but her physical appearance, her age, everything, has been transformed by the illustrations in foreign publications. Girls of 18 or more, sidewalk kittens, cheap models, or simple long-legged criminals are baptized nymphets or Lolitas in news stories and magazines in Italy, France, Germany, etc. And the covers of translations, Turkish or Arab, reach the height of ineptitude when they feature a young woman with opulent contours and a blonde mane imagined by boobies who have never read my book. In reality, Lolita is a little girl of 12, whereas Humbert is a mature man, and it's the abyss between his age and that of the little girl that produces the vacuum, the vertigo, the seduction of mortal danger. Secondly, it's the imagination of the sad satyr that takes a magic creature of this little American schoolgirl, as banal and normal in her way as the poet Mank Humbert is in his. Outside the maniacal gaze of Humbert, there is no nymphet. Lolita the nymphet exists only through the obsession that destroys Humbert. Herein, an essential aspect of a unique book that has been betrayed by a factitious popularity. The romanticization of large age gaps in heterosexual relationships is nothing new. Although more recently dubbed daddy issues, men have always sought to have sex with women who are younger than them. While age gaps are less of an issue the older one is, the imbalance of power in these relationships leads to detrimental outcomes for the younger partner. Typically, these relationships are legal if unethical, with the younger partner being in their late teens, early 20s. However, as pornography has become more and more normalized and postmodernist theory becomes more prevalent, so too has attraction to children become more and more common and is opposed less and less.
Over the past few years, so-called child sex dolls have gained popularity across the country. These aren't just any dolls. They're lifelike figures being advertised as adult dolls that disturbingly resemble young children in size, weight, and looks. They're even being sold on popular websites, upwards of almost $1,000. It may sound criminal, but child sex dolls are in fact legal in all but 3 U.S. states. The topic recently made headlines when one mom experienced every parent's nightmare when she found what she believes is a photo of her 8-year-old daughter that was stolen from the internet and used to create a child sex doll, and it was actively being sold. Luckily, the mother was able to get it removed from its original website, but quickly realized the same doll was being sold elsewhere. The concerned mom is now on a mission dedicated to stopping and identifying sexual predators trading in underage sex material.
One woman has found images of her child used to create child sex dolls, sold on Amazon and other sites, and is now locked in a battle to criminalize the act. While Amazon has removed the doll, having a sex doll modeled after a child is only illegal in Florida, Tennessee, and Kentucky. To me, the open sale of such materials illustrates that a sexual desire for children is far more mainstream than many would expect. However, a recent study further proves this point, as it found that 1 in 6, or 15.1% of Australian men aged over 18 recently surveyed said they had sexual feelings for a child or teen younger than 18 years. This data was part of a study by UNSW Sydney and Jesuit Social Services. Researchers asked 1,945 men about their attraction to children via an online recruitment process. The researchers also found around 1 in 10 Australian men has sexually offended against children. Around half of this group report sexual feelings towards children, while the others may be offending for situational or opportunistic reasons. Of the men with sexual feelings towards children, only 29.6% wanted help. This can be seen enshrined in law, as about 300,000 children and teens were legally married in the United States between 2000 and 2018, according to data from Unchained at Last, a nonprofit that works to help women and girls enforce marriages. Marrying before the age of 18 was legal in all 50 states before 2017. 2017. Since then, 10 states have passed legislation banning the practice. In 2018, Delaware passed legislation raising the minimum age to marry to 18, becoming the first state to ban child marriage.
Unlike this most wonderful wedding that we just attended, did you know that several states legally allow adults to marry children?
That was a weird transition.
Now we can write off our flights for the video.
Anyway, 6 states actually have no statutory minimum age requirement for marriage. In California, for example, any child of any age can technically get married to an adult of any age.
Now, one parent of the child does have to consent, and a court has to approve of the marriage. So obviously with court approval required, child marriage is pretty rare, right?
Well, not really. Research has shown that around 300,000 minors in the US have been married to adults in the last 20 years. These minors were as young as 10 years old, and mostly consisted of young girls being married to adult men.
For example, Dawn Tyree was forced by her parents at age 13 to marry a 31-year-old man who impregnated her, which at that age means rape.
Dawn's family reportedly forced the marriage to keep the man, who was a friend, out of jail. Because in California and several other states, statutory rape actually doesn't apply if you're married.
Although it seems mind-boggling that courts could approve of such marriages, the reality is that they do happen.
I've heard you talk about parents' rights to raise their kids how they want. In fact, I just double-checked. You voted no on making it illegal for kids to be married to adults at the age of 12 if their parents consented to it. You said actually that should be the law because it's the parents' right and the kids' right to decide what's best for them, to be raped by an adult. Okay?
Do you know any kids who have been
With
married
marriage.
at age 12?
That was the law.
Do you know
You
any
voted
kids-
not to change it.
Do you know any kids who have been married at age 12?
I don't need to.
I do. And guess what? They're still married.
Gentlemen.
Opposition to laws banning marriage before 18 comes from both conservatives campaigning for religious freedom and progressive groups. Other forms of support are obvious in our culture, from the positive and often uncritical depictions of pedophilia in media, as well as the rise of pro-pedo groups and the relabeling of pedophilia as being a minor attracted person. However, the most insidious manner of support is also the hardest to call out. Like a frog in a pot, the water's been warming up so slowly that few even think to call it out.
When did children's wear become women's wear? In China, the sizing for women's wear have become so small that an actress like Angelababy, who has a 54 cm waist, cannot fit into a pair of pants when she went shopping with her friends. Some parent bloggers created this trend called 奶辣风, literally milk hot core, which means a milk drinking toddler still needs to look hot. A 1-year-old cannot wear a jacket properly and must take out one side to reveal her shoulder. A kid's swimsuit has a deep V-cut in the front. Children's wear started to have styles like mini skirts and crop tops that you think are designed for K-pop girl groups. If you search for kids' dresses on online shopping platforms, if their faces are blurred, you can't even tell if the models are selling children's wear or women's wear based on how they pose. If it's not enough to cinch their waist, some sellers make the model hold a cup of coffee, as if they're adult women strolling 太古里三里屯. The buyer's review are also appalling. The kid that wears a 130 cm dress praises the product for making her figure look slim.
In 1975, then 10-year-old Brooke Shields was photographed nude and oiled and printed in an issue of Playboy. Her mother later sued to have them banned, not because they were essentially child porn, but because she considered them damaging to Brooke's reputation. As reported in The Guardian, Gross's lawyers argued that his photographs could not further damage Shields' reputation because, since they were taken, she'd made a profitable career as a young vamp and a harlot, a seasoned sexual veteran, a provocative child woman, an erotic and sensual sex symbol, the Lolita of her generation. The judge concurred, and while praising the picture's sultry, sensual appeal, ruled that Gross was not a pornographer. They have no erotic appeal except to possibly perverse minds. That decision was overturned by an appeals court, but in 1983, the original verdict in Gross's favor was upheld. In 1999, then 17 Britney Spears posed in lingerie on the cover of the Rolling Stones. In 2015, Kylie Jenner turned 18, finally making her relationship with Tyga legal, though this did not negate that they had started seeing each other when she was 16 and he was 23. Nor did it undo the damage of the many media outlets which reported on her with headlines such as, Kylie Jenner and Tyga, he loves her showing off her sexy curves. Kylie Jenner, her sexiest pics ever. Kardashians bear all. Kylie Jenner's 16 most seductive Instagrams. Kylie Jenner wears same sexy / swimsuit as sister Kendall. What is Kylie Jenner's sexy new photo shoot for? Kylie Jenner flaunts boobs and big booty in sexy bikini pics. See her resemblance to the Kardashian butts. Today, surveys suggest that 90% of teenagers use social media, and that most begin to use social media at age 12. Even if a young user only follows age-appropriate accounts, one study revealed that test accounts that followed only young gymnasts, cheerleaders, and teen and preteen influencers received recommendations from Instagram's algorithm that included risque footage of children and overtly sexual adult videos, served among ads for American brands. It is very easy to trace a path from the past to where we are today, where alongside the changing beauty standards of the 21st century, which often require surgeries and filters to create the average beauty influencer's image, the use of widespread social media sends harmful messages about self-image and self-worth to young girls. Even those who are aware of the impact of social media, filters, and photo editing are not inoculated against it. Worse still is that the industry has evolved to hide all of this behind a veneer of wellness, self-care, and pop feminism. Skincare routines now routinely use retinol, often in more than one product, in a bid to prevent signs of aging. Retinols were previously prescription only and often only prescribed for a short period of time. However, the skincare industry is not well regulated, and many products now include them. Those who use the products are essentially serving as guinea pigs, as no one is sure what the long-term effects will be. Retinol works by encouraging basal cells in the lowest layer of the skin to divide, and as a result, you get more new epidermal cells that migrate up to the skin's surface and eventually become the rooftop, which leads to new skin cells which don't function well because they have been rapidly produced and therefore lack the necessary adhesion in lipid production to protect the skin properly. Additionally, cells generally divide to grow and repair the tissue in your body, but normal cells can only divide a finite number of times, about 50 according to the Hayflick limit, which is one of the primary reasons we age. Not only does this illustrate the fear of aging, but it also shows how the makeup industry is no less harmful than it was long ago, when women were wearing egg white glazes and lead on their faces. But while we view the Japanese women painting their teeth black or Elizabethan women plucking their hairlines higher as objects of ridicule, we lack the perspective to realize that those 12-step $100 routines are just as humiliating as those of our foremothers.
Me to go to bed. First, let's pick out my outfit for school tomorrow. I'm gonna wear this New York shirt and this cute little skirt. Time to take a shower. Shower is done. Time to put on my toner. By the way, guys, my headband matches my outfit. 3, 2, 1. Nice and fresh. Next up, my retinol. Hello. Gotta put my headband on so I not stick it to my face. Hang on, guys. Now I do makeup. First, I gotta put these on. You guys, I watch on YouTube, so I do a lot of makeup a day. Use this one. Let's try on. Use my hands. Like a colors. Let's try on. Look funny. Blend. I like this one. What's yours? So nice to shape. Like a 60 colors. Let's try on. Like it's weird. Be careful, otherwise. Hit the contour. Let's try it on. You're good. It's a good color. Perfect. Blend the contour. Elf Peak Blush. Let's try it on, guys. Right here and right here. I love blush. There's two powder. Next, actually, it shows you blind. Let's try it on, guys. Good colors. Which color I do? This one or this one? This one. Let's try on. So we'll just try on, guys. Okay, let's go. Ooh, I'm going to make cupcakes. Love you, bye!
It was harder to mimic the rich and powerful without constant surveillance and communication to foster perfect mimicry strategies. But truthfully, same-face syndrome is a derivative of a long-standing tradition. Poor women have always mimicked the rich, whose trends have often been reflective of an ability to not work. Susan Brownmiller wrote about this concept 40 years ago. She noted, distasteful though it may be, the bound foot illustrates several aspects of the feminine aesthetic. It originated in the rarefied atmosphere of a decadent upper class where the physical labor of women was not required, and it became an enviable symbol of luxury, leisure, and refinement. It isolated a specific part of the female body which differed from the male body in some respect, in this case a slightly smaller foot, and cruelly exaggerated the natural difference and the cause of artistic perfection. And what is current beauty culture if not an attempt to diminish, to keep women focused on the self above anything else? Because if we are so busy with making sure we remain within the box of acceptability, then it is all too easy to keep from enacting real change. Makeup continues to remain almost entirely uncriticized because it is positioned as a choice, as if that in any way removes the harm it generates for its users, both physically and mentally. Makeup is often portrayed as being a manner of self-expression and above all, a choice, but truthfully, that's not the case. In an interview by Guernica magazine, philosopher Heather Widdows writes, "To say that we don't choose anything isn't the case. There is choice, but it exists in a very limited sphere. So we don't choose the beauty ideal itself that we fall under, but we do choose to be within that range where there's a certain limited expressiveness. But it is very limited. For example, we might focus on smooth skin or dyed hair. Also, people talk a lot about makeup being hugely expressive and creative. Well, I think makeup is minimally creative and expressive. Makeup's not about painting your skin bright blue or doing fascinating work. It's very prescribed. These things are not coerced, in the sense that we do not feel doing them is an option, though there are many costs to not conforming. We often do them because we take pleasure in the self that we create from them. The idealization of the feminine form in a given age is usually one form only, and ideas of perfection can change with lightning speed, which we can see.
We need to talk about this more. It's so true. The Instagram face, TikTok face, whatever, it honestly means that everyone looks the same. Everyone looks beautiful, but the same. And quite honestly, it makes me feel really insecure because I look at all these beautiful girls out on the streets, Instagram, TikTok, and I just feel like I don't look like them. I don't feel like I hold the beauty standard. I don't have the cute little nose. I don't have the same eyebrows. I don't have the same cheekbones or hair type. And this is why I hardly do any stuff online. I don't post anymore. I just feel so anxious about my face because I just don't feel like it is beautiful or enough, which is crazy. And that's just because everyone's copying each other.
Together with hypersexualized clothing, makeup which aims to create the same look on every face, and an obsession with anti-aging that causes children to actually look older than they are, When we ask Brown Miller's questions about beauty, at what age does a girl child begin to review her assets and count her deficit parts? At what age does the process begin? This obsessive concentration on the minutiae of her physical being that will occupy some portion of her waking hours, quite possibly for the rest of her life. We can answer, younger and younger than ever.
I'm certain that at 11 years old, my skincare what are you getting? Did not require anything from here.
Put that down. For real, for real.
This, dear viewers, is where we part. This was a suggestion from a viewer. I am interested in the Sephora Girls trend, primarily because it's so odd to me. When I was a kid, I just wasn't allowed to do this stuff. Like, I didn't have money, because when you're a child, you don't have a job. So the parents are the ones who are enabling this behavior. And on one hand, I kind of get it, because you don't want your kid to be bullied, so you think, well, I'll give a little, times have changed, I have to keep up with the times. But you also have to know when to hold your ground. Parents have to know when something that a child wants is not good for them, and to hold that boundary and say no, because down the line, I mean, yeah, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I did not want to save my paychecks from my part-time job. I wanted to spend them, I wanted to use them at the mall. But my mom gave me about $20 from each paycheck, and the other $300 went towards my savings. And then when I got to college, I had $5,000 saved away. And when I was 17, I was so annoyed about this. But when I was 18 and I was in college and I had bills to pay, I was so thankful that I had someone who was more mature than me to guide me. Anyhow, I do hope that this was at least an exploratory discussion on this topic. I do think that you could talk about beauty culture and makeup literally forever. There are so many books written about it that I have quoted from that I could go into detail with more. There are so many aspects to it. I could talk about it historically, could talk about it Eastern and Western, because doing it in Asia versus the US is completely different discussions. But this is at least a little exploration of the surface level. Thank you to Sophia Loves Math for a suggestion to look into the beauty industry once more. And don't forget to leave any comments, concerns, etc. in the comment section down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.